Good morning, viewer. Welcome to our Fosek TV. Here is breaking news. US sets the stage for contentious bid and call with China's Jing. Blunt US rhetoric heading into President Joe Biden's call with Chinese President Xi Jinping suggested that a meeting of the minds on Russia's brutality in Ukraine was unlikely and reflects the current bitter tensions between Washington and Beijing. Biden and Xi spoke for nearly 2 hours Friday, according to the White House, with the US setting the stage for a stern warning that Chinese firms would pay a serious price of the Beijing government's hits Russian President Vladimir Putin's pleas for military and economic aid. The call found the US surmounting one of its deepest set foreign policy fears, risking an open clash with China, which simultaneously facing down Russia in another extraordinary geopolitical shuffle triggered by the Ukraine war. It also put Biden in the odd position of seeking the tacit cooperation of the nation seen as America's most powerful rising force to suppress its historic Cold War rival of the second half of the 20th century. Given that China is known for ruthlessly pursuing its own interest and has no interest in shoring up the Western-led world order that Putin is seeking to buckle, it seems fanciful that Xi will choose that the US sees as the right side of history on the Ukraine conflict, at least until its own economic self-interest dictates a change of course. And US-China relations are so toxic that many analysts had been predicting a new Cold War in the Pacific between the rivals before the original version recreated in Europe with Putin's invasion of Ukraine at the end of last month. The theatrics of a call that was closely watched around the world cannot be dismissed just by holding the conversation and publicizing it heavily beforehand. Biden sent a signal to Putin that his no-limits friendship forged with Xi in Beijing shortly before the invasion may not be as significant as the Russian leader had hoped. The conversation also fosters an impression that Washington sees China as the key global power other than itself instead of Moscow. It comes as a surprisingly swift and effective Western and international front has clapped a devastating economic, banking, cultural, sporting, and diplomatic boycott on Russia. Any significant help from China for Russia could, therefore, be hugely valuable to Putin, possibly allowing him to offset some of the isolation and economic blight in his country and sustain his brutal Ukraine war longer. Two US officials told the journalists this week that Russia had asked China for military support, including drones as well as economic assistance following the invasion. The US also informed allies in Asia and Europe in a diplomatic call that China has expressed some openness to offering such help. Both Russia and China have denied that there have been any such request. Any pledge from Xi not to break international sanctions on Russia would be seen as a major victory for Biden, though it is possible the Chinese would seek concessions from the US for such a move, possibly over Trump-era tariffs. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Thursday offered a robust preview of the call, saying that China will bear responsibility for any actions it takes to support Russia's aggression and that the US will not hesitate to impose costs on China if it does so. His comments were a barely disguised hint that Chinese firms would face secondary sanctions if the government in Beijing offers aid to Moscow. That would be a concern for Xi governments given the current slowing of China, traditionally soaring growth rates and the economic consequences of the latest COVID-19 surge. The US President may have some leverage since Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez on Monday that China was not a party to the conflict and still less wants to be affected by the sanctions, according to the official Xinhua news agency. This government has attempted to adopt a delicate balance throughout the Ukraine crisis. It has a clear interest in Putin's attempt to use the conflict to weaken democracy, the West, and the rule of international law. And if the United States is bogged down for years in Europe, it could frustrate Washington's goal of pivoting military, intelligence, and diplomatic resources to Asia to deal with broader consequences of China's rise. But China's long-term economic interests are also at risk if the Ukraine war sends the global economy into reverse. So Beijing has sought to create a diplomatic middle group, refraining from criticizing Putin but seeking to avoid going to a point of no return with the US and its significant trading partners in European Union. While China has not formally condemned the invasion, Xi did stress the situation was worrisome, that China was deeply grieved by the war and that it would work actively to support a peaceful settlement. Those comments came in a video call with French and German leaders last week, Xinhua reported. Beijing also endorsed comments made by its ambassador to Ukraine, Fan Zhenok, that were quoted in a press release from the live regional government. China will never attack Ukraine. We will help, especially economically. Fan said in comments that appeared incompatible with any possible Chinese military aid to Putin's war effort. But in line with a desire to discredit the US, Chinese media has also amplified false Russian propaganda that Washington had funded biological weapons labs in Ukraine. The conspiracies are seen by Washington as a possible precursor to a false flag event that Moscow might use as ruse or rush to deploy such weapons. The Biden White House is making the case that Chinese struggle on the war is unsustainable. The issue appeared to have been the subject of tough exchanges on Ukraine during a 7-hour meeting in Rome this week. Biden, U.S. National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan and Chinese Foreign Policy Chief Yang Jiechi in Rome, which the U.S. side described as intense. Biden's call on Friday was expected to be equally frank. This is an opportunity for President Biden to access where President Xi stands. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki told reporters Thursday, promising that her boss would be candid and direct on the call. Be on the report for TV USA.